Welcome back, Glam fam. Last week, we kicked off an inspiring journey with the amazing Dr. Iqbal, diving deep into the world of weight loss, understanding the science behind it, and exploring some of the solutions that can help you achieve your goals safely and effectively. Well, this week, we're taking things up a notch. Maggie's back, and she's ready to take the next step in her transformation journey. We're getting a closer look at one of today's most talked about weight loss solutions, and that's the injectables. What actually happens during the treatment? How do doctors make sure everything is safe, smooth, and tailored just for you? And most importantly, how do you make sure you get the best results? We're finding out all of that and more today on The Glam, where confidence meets care and beauty is all about feeling your best inside out. We're back from the lab with Maggie, and was it intense? Was it good?
Yeah, it was intense a bit.
Okay, mostly psychologically, yeah? Okay, so now we're back with Dr. Iqbal, who's now going to discuss now the preferred treatment that Maggie is going to be on for the next couple of months. Now he's going to tell us exactly how many months. So Dr. Iqbal, from her results from the lab, what are some of the things that you would say will be able to determine what treatment she's going to get on?
Okay, so welcome back. So your results are looking fairly okay. Usually we test, number one thing is of course your BMI, which qualifies you for this treatment. The second thing is your lab test. So your blood results are okay, your hemoglobin, there's no infection or anything like that going on. You also checked your thyroid levels, which are normal, they're within range. Your cholesterol seems to be slightly high, okay? So you need to, of course we'll manage that. But it's only slightly high, what we call borderline high total cholesterol. So that just needs a bit of lifestyle modification. In terms of the other tests, they're all normal. And also your HbA1c, what we call the sugar test, is slightly on the borderline factor, what you call pre-diabetes. So those are what we picked on the lab. Now having that said, then the treatment options are, you still qualify for any of the above options which we discussed. So the balloon, the injections, or the medications. However, the medication you'll have slower results, whereas the balloon, it's a procedure, it's slightly more invasive. Now according to your own preference, of course you mentioned the injectables. Now the injectables, again, we have many different types, but what I would recommend for you is something called tirzepatide. Okay. So tirzepatide is a medication that is better than the others. It has two molecules, what we call GLP and GIP. Okay, so basically this is how it looks like. Okay, so it looks something like this. Okay, and basically you will be doing one of these every single week. Okay, so it's a single week dose basically, and it's a subcutaneous injection, so it's not painful, okay, per se. And of course our personnel will guide you on how to inject and such things. Now as we start you on this treatment, just to recap how they work. So they'll help you with the reduction of appetite, they'll help you burn up those excess fats, and they'll also keep you full longer. While you're on this drug, remember the side effects. So the side effects initially, especially as you start on this medication, a bit of nausea, a bit of constipation, a bit of fatigue, all these are expected. Usually they're mild, they wear off with time. After the first, second sort of shot, you might not have so much of a side effect, but you need to work with the team, with the doctors, such that if you have any major side effect or issue, then we will advise you on it accordingly. The other thing is, now from here, of course, the next thing is now the nutrition. So before we start you on any of this treatment, the treatment will essentially go for a number of weeks, but you will still be in touch with our nutritionist. So the program involves a nutritionist. So what is the nutritionist's work? Here is where we look at, yes, you're eating less, but are you eating the right things? Your body needs those proteins, those vitamins, those minerals. You need to stay productive, go to work normally and such things. So nutrition is very, very important. You can prevent things like muscle loss and some of the complications we hear about them online just by the diet. Okay. If you fail to eat things like protein, certain vitamins, then you might have certain side effects. Same for the exercise. So we do recommend exercise, but that is why you also have a trainer on board. So he will guide you on the right kind of preferred kind of exercises you should be doing throughout the program. And exercise is important because you want to tone up. Remember, as you lose weight, you might have a bit of sagging skin, which you don't want that. So that's why you need to work with the trainer and to ensure that your exercise is in order. And then the last person or second last person you'll see is the psychotherapist, who will still take you through understanding what the treatment is about and understanding that it is a tool that will help you correct your lifestyle changes and that will help you maintain the weight long term. She'll also be able to tackle any of those things like stress eating, things like stressors adding weight to you, things like if you have anxiety about the treatment. So the psychologist is a person who will be holding your hand throughout the program. Now, all these specialists who you will be meeting, there's also one more doctor you will see. She'll also do her analysis. So basically all the team members, you will be meeting them every 2 weeks or so for a review, where we are checking, are you getting any side effects? Are you having good results? Okay, and ultimately, are we improving your quality of life? Okay. In between the follow-ups, we will still be in touch with you. Okay, via phone call, WhatsApps. We'll be checking in on you to make sure you're okay. And should you have any issue, it's also upon you to communicate with us.
So welcome to the session, and we're gonna cover the nutrition a bit today. So my name is George, and we want to look at 3 primary things in this session. Number 1, we're gonna do anthropometry, that's basically the body measurements. Then you look at food history, just how your plate currently looks like, and what changes you need to make. Then you also look at exercise history and what needs to change over there. Yeah. So here's what we would want to do. It's better to have smaller meals more frequently than to have fewer meals that are large. Make sense? So what I would have you do is, instead of doing the 3 cups in one sitting, I would rather you do the 3 cups in 3 different sittings. So same amount of food by end of day, but then what's happening is it's spread across the day. So the idea behind that is every meal that you serve has something called a glycemic load. Basically the amount of sugar that you find in that meal. Now the glycemic load that you're taking currently is 3 cups size. I would want that load be spread across the day so that the body, in trying to process all that, it's processing it not in one instance but across the day. So the effect of that is you get a better calorie deficit per meal. Yeah. So it is a better strategy to assume or move from an OMAD, 1 meal a day, to a 3 meal a day or even a 4 meal a day. Yeah. Now, because you're starting on the injectables, basically it's going to suppress appetite. So with that suppressed appetite, we want to use that state to sort of build a new habit, a new culture. Now, the thing about OMAD is it's not always tenable over the long haul. It's good as an event to try and get you to a particular goal, but then after you're at that goal, are you able to sustain that same routine? The idea in this program is to have a routine that you can do now and even after. So it's more of a lifestyle change. So something that can feel practical, something that is doable day in, day out, whether you're on the jobs or not. All right? So I feel a 3 MAD or a 4 meals a day is a much better option than a 1 meal a day. All right? Okay. Now, generally when you're starting, we'll throw out the body a plan, and that plan will constitute about 3 things. So we'll look at food portions, how much you're serving per meal. Then we look at the number of meals you're serving. Now that will also address the bit of how long are you going between meals. Now, generally in a setup of 24 hours, which everyone has, we want to have 2 blocks, a block of fasting and a block of feasting. So the time where you're serving your meals and the time where you're not serving anything. Yeah? So generally, we want to work with either 3 meals a day or 4 meals a day. if you're working with 3 meals a day and, the structure that we just spoke about, the period of fasting and the period of feasting, we want to stay near a 12 kind of a setup. So it's divided in half, 12 hours fasting, 12 hours feasting. Now, if we are spreading 3 meals across a 12-hour window, then we're doing about a meal every 6 or so hours. If you're doing 4 meals in a 12-hour window, we're doing a meal every 4 hours. Now, the ideal for a pre-diabetic or diabetic situation is you want to serve your meals between 3 to 5 hours. So a minimum of 3, a maximum of 5 hour stretch. So the portion we are talking about, again, these cups. So this will become your new plates. Interesting. And we want that any meal you serve to be a maximum of this much. So that means the entire plate, the protein, the starch, the veggies, all combined together should fit in this cup. Amen. All right. So that said, any meal you serve is this much, then we end up serving either 3 to 4 meals across the day. Now, whether 3 or 4 is dependent on the practicality of it. Now, we'll begin to look at how your work schedule look like, and that will help us figure. But we should stay near that gap of any meal should be at least 3 hours and at most 5 hours between each other. So that's generally the setup. Now, having said that, that should generally give us a view of how the meal side is looking. And it is important to also note, as maybe the third thing, what is a meal? A meal is anything that is not water. Meaning if you take a cup of tea, you've just had a meal. If you take soup, for instance, you've just had a meal. If you take a fruit, you've had a meal. Because whether we regard that as a snack or as a meal, or we just count ugali and maybe nyama, that is the meal, and not the tea, the body counts all of this as food. So the mind is not, but the body is. We want to now bring ourselves to where we are agreeing with what the body is doing. Yeah? So anything that is not water is food. All right? So those are the primary 3 things on the food side that we'll be looking at. So when it comes to the exercise end of things, what we want to look at is something that's practical in your life, and especially something you enjoy. So enjoyment is really important when it comes to working out. So you don't want to throw yourself into something that feels, exciting, or that feels this is what, I should do. It needs to have a level of enjoyment, because the more you feel something, the more stickability you have to it. And exercises gives you profit or gives you dividends out of how consistent you are with it. And consistency is bred from how much you love that thing. So if it be walking, it doesn't matter if you're not doing anything else, it's just the walks. We build up on that, and what you want to see happening over the duration of this program is organic growth. So that means that if you're starting out, say maybe the steps and walking, and you're doing like maybe a distance of maybe 5 kilometers a day, then what you want to see is that by the end of the month, you're doing the 5 kilometers, maybe in lesser time for each of that. Or you're doing the same amount of time you spent doing the 5 kms earlier, but now you're not doing 5 kms anymore, you're doing 6. So there is growth over time. So whether that is month to month, or if you're a bit more aggressive, maybe it could be week to week, or even every 2 weeks, you're seeing a step up in terms of the output you're putting in. Yeah. So generally that is what we'll be viewing and trying to measure over time. Then something else important, we want to use this duration as an experimental kind of a period where you're trying out different things to see, do I enjoy this? Do I not? Do I enjoy the indoors? Do I enjoy the outdoors? If indoors, is that YouTube? If YouTube, what exercises can I put in? So I want to look at dance workouts. I want to try different trainers. So look at it as an experiment, not so much that I want to get my exercise done, as much as I want to discover what do I love. That's very important. All right. So that's also something we'll be checking over the duration of this journey. So lastly, the final bit, we said it's 3 things. So food history, we've covered that. We've covered workout history, now the anthropometry. So this is body measurements, and you're measuring basically your body just to see where you're starting at inches wise. The reason we do this is because the scale should not only be the only thing that is measuring your progress. At times the scale is just stubborn, but you look at inches you've moved. So that's also important to know.
So this is your drug. You're using it once weekly. So it's a 2.5 milligram pen. Always stored in the fridge. When you want to come for the jab, just tell us 30 minutes before you're here so that you can take it out. Okay, so this is how it looks like. So here's the needle. So I need to remove this bulb over here, just like that. Then now it's ready for injection. Come, swab the area. So it's the outer arm. You can either do it on your outer arms, the tummy area, or your thigh area. So you prefer the outer arm. Yeah. So then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I count up to 6 just to make sure everything has gotten inside, and that's it.
Right, how are you, Margaret? Oh, good to hear that. My name is Faith. I am the psychologist. It's good to meet you. How are you feeling so far?
Good pressure.
Yeah?
Good pressure.
I hear you. Yeah, after the session with George, there's usually that where Ntashiba Kweli. So that's why I usually come last. Yeah, just to link weight loss with psychotherapy, because what we are doing is weight loss is just one benefit of the program we are doing. There are multiple benefits to it, and especially we want to build a lifestyle with this. So a lifestyle requires a mindset shift, because with the injections or any other tools that you use for weight loss, there's gonna be a shift in your body, but if the mind hasn't changed, then the body will switch back after a while. After you're done with the injections or whatever tool it was you're using, it will change back. With the mindset shift, it includes now finding the patterns, the triggers, what you have believed in for a long time. If you've struggled with weight as well, there are things that have formed. Your body image, we'll talk about the sleep, because sleep also affects weight, the gain and the loss of it as well. We'll talk about the relationship that you have with food, because it's not only what you eat, it's also why you're eating, when you're eating it, how you're eating. So just finding that is where now psychology comes in. Also support, because it's not an easy journey to be on. For a lot of people, they have tried different things to lose weight, and maybe it comes back, or it's difficult to lose. So there's what forms with that. So just trying to heal some things that we've undergone in the past, and also having that support in case there are plateaus, because those will happen. It's not going to be an easy journey. There will be the ups and the downs. So how to go about those, and also trying to create something that doesn't have highs or lows. It's steady. Because with weight, there's a lot of times where we feel like we have to compensate, When I've had a bad day, then the next day I'm thinking, now I have to do the most to make up for yesterday. But a lot of times what we create are loops of very highs and very lows. So we want to be able to know how to manage on the bad days, the good days, how to celebrate ourselves, and the progress. Like the nutritionist mentioned, it's not only about the scale where we get the progress. We want to be able to find progress in a lot of things, so that we have motivation constantly. And there are different tools that enable us to be able to find those, different tools to enable the mind to catch up with the body, because the body moves faster, and sometimes the mind is left behind. Yeah, so that's mostly where I come in. We have a 3-month program. Sometimes it's not enough in the 3 months to do everything. So there's usually a continuation that now we can talk about afterwards. But in those 3 months, you're able to build quite a foundation, really, and be able to carry on afterwards.
So good afternoon, Margaret. It's such a pleasure to be with you here today as you start this journey on weight loss. I'll be taking you through, why is it so important for us to manage our weight. Really, we find weight management, or what we call obesity, are very important aspects in the overall management of a patient. And sometimes, we've wondered, why is obesity such a big deal? Why is the weight increment such a big problem? And what I would be saying is that when we look at obesity, it is just part of the spectrum of a bigger illness. And what we are trying to do when we are managing it, we are trying to manage your cardiovascular risk. Now, cardiovascular risk is a big term, and it has multiple aspects to it. And we'd start with what are cardiovascular risk factors? What are these things? So there's what we call the traditional risk factors, which are, for example, high blood pressure, having diabetes, having a high cholesterol level, being a smoker, not exercising, not taking adequate amounts of vegetables and fruits. So that's what we call the traditional risk factors. And then there are other factors. Obesity actually is part of the traditional risk factors for cardiovascular risk. And the reason why they are so important is because these are the things which will actually cause heart disease at the end of the day. Yeah. So when we talk about heart disease specifically, what is it that we are wondering about? So it's patients who get heart attacks, for example. I think you've heard about that. A patient comes in, a young person, he was in the gym, he was jogging, fell, he got a heart attack. And sometimes you're all shocked, wondering, gosh, what happened to my friend or to someone who you knew? So that is one of them. Other things are strokes. They are counted as part of the cardiovascular poor outcomes. Strokes, and then heart failure, where the heart stops working. Okay, so when we look at especially women, we find that currently in the world, actually the prevalence of obesity is quite high. 1 in 8 people are obese, and those were statistics which were given by the WHO about 2-3 years ago. And they actually found out that obesity is not just affecting the older generation. Now it's starting from a very young age. Below 5 years, we find a lot of children are already obese. A lot of teenagers are obese. So most of them will land into adulthood when they're already obese. So if I'm to talk specifically, Wangari, about women, we find that a lot of women actually suffer from obesity as a problem. And there are many factors which will cause this. One of them, which is really glaring for us, is, the childbirth. When women become pregnant, they add weight. Most women, not every woman, but most women will add quite a bit of weight, while for some their appetites go up. And then the hormonal changes, which will make them add quite a bit of weight. And we do have challenges where the woman now has had their baby, and it is time to get rid of the excessive weight. And when you imagine if a woman has added up to 20 kilos during the first pregnancy, and they're working hard to lose that weight, there are many factors which will come in. Lack of just time, the stress which occurs with a new child and childbirth. So you find that then they end up overeating or just eating the wrong thing. Sometimes they don't even have the time to prepare a proper nice meal which will help them lose weight, or getting time to exercise. And for most women, they sometimes get pregnant even before they've lost the baby weight, what we'd call like baby weight. And then it becomes a compounded problem, where by the time they have their third child, they've had so much weight. And one of the challenges with obesity is the fact that once the weight is there, it's not easy to get rid of it. And the more it is, the harder it is. And why do I say that? Because a lot of times the knees will start to hurt. So if you're quite overweight and you decide it's time to jog, or you're going to use a skipping rope, you find that your knees start to hurt you already. Yeah. So there are a lot of challenges there. And sometimes it's just the discouragement. But then beyond the weight for women, there's what now the current world, and in cardiovascular medicine we are recognizing more often, which is what we call the sex-specific cardiovascular risk factors. These are risk factors which are unique to women, okay? And they're usually related to pregnancy and hormonal changes. So I can give you a few examples. For example, women who have polycystic ovaries, they have a lot of hormonal imbalances, and they tend to add weight So even among friends, they might be eating similar amount of food or even less, and they're struggling in the gym, and they don't realize that their weight is not just about food. There's more because of the hormones. So that's one of the sex-specific risk factors. The other thing is pregnancy itself can bring what we call gestational diabetes, meaning that your blood sugar become abnormal during your pregnancy. You get high blood pressure during pregnancy. There are women whose blood pressure becomes so severe that they get a condition we call eclampsia and preeclampsia. These are conditions which occur during pregnancy. Other women during pregnancy also get heart disease developing, and we call it peripartum cardiomyopathy. So you find that women, not only do they have the challenge of just being obese and having cardiovascular risk factors which are shared among the men, but then they are exposed to these extra cardiovascular risk factors, which the world now is recognizing more. And we are actually putting in a lot of effort trying to understand how do they affect the woman, how do we mitigate against them, and how do we help these women so that they don't die of cardiovascular disease at a very young age. Now, what happens is if a woman gets a cardiovascular, outcome, for example, a heart attack or a stroke before the age of 65, we call that premature. And if we look back, a lot of times we are finding that these women actually had an issue. Maybe they were found to have high blood pressure during pregnancy. It's been 20 years. They didn't even follow up with their doctors. So I think for me, obesity, as we start this journey, is something which has to be looked at as just part of a bigger syndrome, of a bigger problem. And what we are trying to prevent is actually cardiovascular disease for these women so that they don't get it early. Because if the woman gets affected by a stroke, for example, that is the mother not available. It affects the entire family. It affects the community. So it becomes a very important aspect. Okay?
What an information-packed show. Oh my goodness. I've learned so many things, and I just want to give a big thank you to every single health practitioner that we've interacted with today at Halcyon Healthcare Center. And remember, this is not the last of this episode. This is just the first half of this episode, because we will be following Margaret Wanjuku's journey all the way from today till the end of this journey, which is after 3 months. So we'll see the things that she's going to do, some of the things that she's not going to do, if she has actually followed the advice of the health practitioners. So it's going to be a really interesting journey that you and I can learn from. So until next time, stay glam, but until then, mwah! Happy take.
Hi Tracy.
Wait.
Welcome.
We'll do. We've already met.
Huh?
Shall we break
So-
it?